I was going to write 220 pages of a rant against venture capital today. And I think they were very happy to find out that it's really only about 10 pages of a rant about venture capital today. But the final paragraph of that part that is a rant goes as follows. Venture capitalists should look in the mirror and ask themselves if their investments are consistent with the high-risk, high-return, company-building strategies expected of their funds. They need to relearn how to nurture the companies in their portfolio without getting in the way of management. Their limited partners also need to have patience and recognize that we cannot compensate for the losses of the bust without seriously compromising the future. And I don't let entrepreneurs off the hook. And entrepreneurs need to understand that starting a company is risky and hard work and not an easy road to riches. Founders should be passionate about building companies that have value for the long term, while being open to serendipity if the right suitor comes their way. Now, not only do we have a problem of short-sightedness in the venture community, but amongst our large public companies, and I'll just read a short paragraph about that. A CEO serves at the pleasure of the board of directors, and both are responsible to shareholders. The interest of all groups should be aligned to create long-term growth, but investors' desire for faster returns, diminished trust in the boardroom, and shorter CEO tenures have combined to make it very hard to define what, quote, best interest of the shareholders means. Organizations don't operate in a vacuum, and to say the least, the last decade has been devastating to our national innovation ecosystem. To get back on track, we need changes across the board in leadership, policy, education, and increased investment in research. When faced with significant threats or challenges, the way in which leaders react has significant impact on innovation. Some choose to lead through fear or intimidation. For example, after the tragedy of 9/11, the nation's leadership had a significant impact on the psyche of the country by essentially saying, there are terrible threats, you should be afraid, but go shopping. We will take care of it. Creating fear, coupled with a sense of helplessness, results in turning off the executive function critical to innovative thinking. The alternative is to lead through inspiration, not fear, to turn threats into challenges that can be used to rally involvement. When people feel involved, not helpless, innovation flourishes. This is not just important for leaders in government. Whether you are running a company or a team that is trying to figure out how to react to the economic crisis, or someone who has just lost your job and needs to adjust your lifestyle, involving those around you in the solutions is important. People who are inspired and challenged, that believe they can have an impact, do amazing things. I am thankful now that we have a president who understands his role in rallying the nation. He understands the need to balance the urgencies of today while maintaining a long view and investing in the future. Inauguration Day brought hope, but even as I listened to his speech, and I must admit that as I listened I smiled and cried, I knew that I could not stop talking about the need to rebalance our innovation ecosystem because the problem is not solved. Although it is necessary, it's not sufficient for the president to get it. The importance of addressing the innovation gap needs to be understood in Congress, state and local governments, by investors, business leaders, educators, as well as the general population. We not only need great leadership in the country, we need great talent. There is no innovation that is more important for the world than the development of young minds. The book is dedicated to the future of innovators all over the world. And as an aside, I will say that my son asked me why I did not dedicate the book to him. And I had to tell him that those of you, if you read the book, will see that the book starts off talking about him, ends up talking about him, and ends up the acknowledgments talking about him. And so I looked at him and I said, I thought that was enough. So I had to dedicate it to future innovators and not just. But it will tell you something about my son that he thought he deserved yet another. So it is dedicated to future innovators all over the world. But fewer of them will be here at home if we do not do something about our education system and our culture. For education and culture are the keys to creating the right soil and planting the seeds to develop future innovators. We want our kids to be experiencing many subjects, from science to the arts, for it is impossible to predict how they will feel 5 to 10 years from now, or what the world will even be like. But it is too easy to limit their options by believing that they, or you, already know what path they do or don't want to go down. What is clear is that future challenges and opportunities will increasingly require interdisciplinary skills. Most important today for our kids is to develop skills as innovators, learn to learn, develop a capacity to change and adapt, learn how to collaborate with people like themselves and those from other cultures, experience playfulness, exploration, and experimentation. And whether our children want to be mathematicians, musicians, doctors, or the President of the United States, it is critical in today's world that they have a base level understanding of science and technology, to work, to make decisions about their health, how they live, and how they vote. Along with significant reform of our education system, we need to shift in our culture, moving beyond instant gratification and returning to a society that values building and creating, and not just trading anything and everything. Hopefully, we will learn from failure, and that the current financial crisis will show people that the American dream is about ongoing prosperity and not short-term greed. It's human nature to want the best for you and your family. But if we can focus on prosperity and not greed, we are more likely to recognize that each of us are part of a society and that our individual prosperity is linked to the prosperity of others. I submitted the manuscript in March of 2008. And again, as an aside, it came out in September, so if there's an industry that needs innovation, it's the publishing industry, that it still takes 6 months today for a book to be published. But it was March 2008 that I noted in the introduction that we were all a bit like characters in the Roadrunner cartoons, running off the cliff, hanging in midair with grins on our faces, not yet realizing that the once solid ground below us was no longer there. As precarious as I thought our situation was then, I did not imagine how soon we would fall off the cliff, or how hard the fall would be. The book ends with a call to action, and I'll just read one of the paragraphs from it. The challenges that we face are wide-ranging and deeply embedded in our culture. Repositioning ourselves to thrive in the new global economy will take time. Some of the transitions will not be easy, but I have faith that with courage, commitment, and the boldness that has always distinguished the most successful innovators and entrepreneurs, we can execute this major change in course together as a nation. In order to solve the problems we face and to address future challenges, we will have to break down many walls. There are too many silos between the fields of science, between science and the arts, between political parties, between communities of the innovation ecosystem, and among leaders of business, government, and nonprofit organizations. Breaking down those silos will encourage the free flow of ideas and collaboration necessary to find new ways of approaching the problems we face, healthcare, education, or energy, just to name a few. But openness and breaking down walls comes with trust. And unfortunately, trust is pretty shaky right now in the country. Too many have lost trust in their ability to get a good education or affordable health care, or to hold on to their jobs or their homes. Given the events of the last few years, it's hard to trust our banks, our government, or our business leaders. But for future generations, we must rebuild the foundation of trust one step at a time, through actions of individuals and changes in government and business behaviors and policy. And with renewed trust will come a new openness, willingness to question and take intelligent risk. Before I take questions, I would like to end on a personal note. Writing this book was part of my own personal and professional innovation. After over 25 years of intense focus on building companies and raising a son, for the last several years,